Sure, season-long fantasy football is great, but you know what's equally awesome? Making money weekly. And that's our goal on the brand new Fantasy Football Today DFS podcast. Join me, Frank Stanfill, alongside DFS analysts Mike McClure and Sia Najad twice a week for the most well-rounded analysis in the industry. Download and follow Fantasy Football Today DFS wherever podcasts are found.
This is Fantasy Football Today from CBS Sports.
On his way to the end zone.
Tell you what, that was a spectacular play.
It's time to dominate your fantasy league.
What a play! Off to the races. Touchdown. Oh, he's done it again.
Now here's some combination of Adam, Dave, Jamie, Heath, and Ben.
Time to talk about running backs, the key to fantasy football. Also wide receivers, tight ends, and quarterbacks, but certainly running backs. They are super important in fantasy football, and they stress me out. This is a tough position with a lot of incredible players, the best, most valuable players in fantasy football, but also a lot of busts, especially the last 2 years. We have not done a very good job with our first-round picks in running backs. Or maybe we can just blame the running backs. They haven't done a great job. I'm Adam Azer with Dave Richard and Jamie Eisenberg. Yeah, I mean, McCaffrey and Barkley last year, for example, duds. And there were others later toward the back half of the first round that did not pan out. So I'm going to ask you guys, what do you think about running back this year? It's 2021, Jamie. How's running back looking to you?
Looks great. Nobody's going to get hurt. There's going to be no problems. All the offensive lines are fantastic. The quarterbacks are throwing to their running backs all the time. There's going to be off the charts, record-breaking numbers for running backs this year.
The quarterbacks are throwing to their running backs. It wasn't as important last year as it was in the past. You know, Dave, last year was just a bad year for running backs. Maybe we should just put that in the past. It was not a good year for running backs.
Well, we had a couple that got hurt and a couple more that underperformed. So, yeah, that's kind of the story with running backs every year. It's a fragile position. These guys get banged up, and yet people recognize that it's hard to find good ones, and so they prioritize them. And I'm one of those people. And that's why when I get to round 4 of a fantasy draft and I'm looking for a running back, I go, oh, crap, there's nothing left that I really like. And because I get that way and because I know I would feel that way in a draft, I put pressure on myself to get at least one really good one, if not 2, within my first 3 picks, just to have the chance of getting a running back that can survive the majority of the season, give me 20 fantasy points per game in PPR. I would take 11 or 12 in non. And just, have somebody stable in my lineup that gives me a chance to put up fantasy points. It's the position among the flex positions, that means not including quarterbacks, that puts up the most fantasy points when you've got a great one.
Yeah. It doesn't even matter the format. The best players, I don't know if it's usually going to be 2 of the best players, 4 or 5 of the best players. They are almost always running backs. And that's why we're so drawn to them, and that's why McCaffrey is going to be basically the consensus number 1 pick, even after only playing in a few games last year. All right, so we had Ben Gretsch on our show over a year ago, and he talked about the running back dead zone, and a lot of people really are starting to buy into this, Jamie, of beginning in round 3. Do we have a certain definition for the running back dead zone?
I don't know if it's round 3. It feels like it's closer to round 4 or the guys going in round 4. When you start to get to that Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, and you can feel however you want about these guys, but this is just the range of guys. Jacobs, Sanders, Gaskin, Davis, Mike Davis, Travis Etienne, that group of guys. I think, and maybe J.K. Dobbins kicks it off. David Montgomery, you could throw in there. Chris Carson, if you want to throw them in there. I hope those 3 guys are in a different category, but it feels like those round 4 running backs are the ones that are going to really kind of tilt a lot of drafts. If Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs outperform their concerns of sharing the ball and what their teams can look like, then they're going to win a lot of people fantasy leagues. But like Dave said, you get to round 4 and it's like, if you don't have at least 1, if not 2 running backs, I think 1 is certainly safe, but it's not a bad idea to have 2. But if you have 1 and you can look at the wide receiver value that's there, and then maybe you have, 1 running back, maybe a tight end, but let's say it's 1 running back and 3 receivers by the time you come through round 4, then you just start picking off guys. Then you start to get to the group that has not as much maybe reward, but the risk is mitigated by the cost. And so, it's the Damian Harrises, the Javonte Williams, the Michael Carters, pick your Cardinals running back that you like, Chase Edmonds or James Conner, Zach Moss, that group. And, you take a few of those guys and, you just hope one of them hits. But now your receiving core is loaded. And if the guy that you took in the first round or the second round is in good shape, then that makes your fantasy team even better. So for me, the dead zone is round 4. And some of those guys I mentioned are in the dead zone too. But I think, it's just a matter of, again, when you're drafting them.
Yeah, and I'll ask you guys this in a bit, but is the dead zone better this year than it used to be? Because we're not used to seeing third-year running backs coming off disappointing seasons like Josh Jacobs and Miles Sanders. That's not the type of player that usually ends up in the dead zone. Usually the dead zone is Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley last year, players who were hanging on by a thread and we bought into their workloads, and they turned out they were just kind of done. And we got half a good season from Todd Gurley, but that was it. So we'll get back into that. But one thing you need to keep in mind when you're drafting running backs, according to Fantasy Pros PPR ADP, there are 14 running backs being taken in the first 2 rounds. There are 8 wide receivers being taken in the first 2 rounds. So, of course, when you get to round 3, the wide receiver is going to look better than the running back at that point. You're just deeper in the player pool at running back. Now, Dave, listen to this. In the last 2 seasons, there have been 5 running backs who finished as top 16 running backs drafted in rounds 3 to 4. Last 2 seasons, rounds 3 and 4, 5 of them finished top 16. At wide receiver, there were 17 wide receivers over the last 2 seasons drafted in rounds 3 and 4 that finished top 16 at wide receiver. 17 to 5.
Yeah.
So should that influence your strategy?
Generally, wide receivers don't go off the board first. It's the running backs that go first. The strategy that we've been crowing about for the majority of the offseason is kind of the same strategy that we've been crowing about almost our entire careers here. And that is aim for running back early. It's not something that everybody does. The people that win leagues by going 0 RB, they swear by it. Nope, wait to take a running back. You're going to do it later. You'll be loaded at every other position with players that don't get hurt as much. And you just kind of weed your way through until you find a couple of running backs that are good starters for you. That takes luck. That takes effort, which some people just don't want to do. It's the same people that are just now tuning into this fantasy podcast for the first time in 6 months that don't love fantasy and don't obsess over it. They're just, trying to put a team together, get a couple of ideas on how to build a roster, and off they go. They don't want to put in the work on the waiver wire. They don't want to make trades. Some people are like that. The people that are like that are the ones that are going to look for running backs a little bit early on, partially because we're suggesting it. But typically running backs go in those first couple of rounds. Receivers follow. More receivers are drafted in rounds 3 and 4 than running backs in a general year anyway. Mm-hmm. It doesn't surprise me.
But is that
and I want to add one last thing. I don't think the running back, everybody's got a different opinion on where the running back dead zone begins. I don't think Jacobs and Sanders are in it. I don't love those guys, but I don't think they're dead zone running backs per se. I would say round 5 is when you're going to start to see the running back dead zone come into play.
Okay, but I think the argument has been that round 3 actually is a pretty crappy round for running backs, and that we elevate players into round 3 every year because they're running backs.
See, I think that's happening in round 5 this year.
Okay.
No, it's happening in round 3. 100%.
Well, who do you think, Jamie?
I don't think the players are bad, but that's the problem is that people panic because they don't get a running back that they want, and they push guys into a round that they probably shouldn't be in. They should be probably round 4 running backs because they're good players. They're just not difference-making players.
So who? You want me to tell you the guys? All right, so here's round 3 running backs. it's really not that many. DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery, right. J.K. Dobbins, and Miles Sanders. And obviously, we just got a report before we came on. The report not too long ago. DeAndre Swift's actually missing significant time with a groin injury. So he's a little bit different. But it's 4 guys. Swift, Montgomery, Dobbins, Miles Sanders. They're in round 3. Should they not?
Right. But it's really like, all these guys get pushed up because people get nervous that they're not going to get a guy. And so, when we look, you just do the numbers. You mentioned, Adam, what the running back numbers are compared to the wide receiver numbers. You say this all the time. What the third receiver is, or the third running back is, what the 8th receiver, however it comes out.
Oh, no. What I say is that, like, if you're choosing between Stephon Diggs and running back 10 in a full PPR league, odds are Stephon Diggs is going to absolutely crush
Exactly.
running back.
And so what ends up happening is, so the 4th receiver versus the 11th running back, and you keep the sliding scale going, but those running backs get pushed up because you're hoping that they hit because of the position scarcity.
Yeah.
But again, if you're just looking at the numbers of it, if you don't take those running backs in the 2nd round or the 3rd round, then they become better players for your fantasy team. But again, they play a position of need. So you have to get those players early. And that's why people draft them in spots that if you're just looking at it from a point system, they wouldn't produce at the same level at the players that you should be drafting in those rounds because they put up higher points. Yeah. Same thing with quarterbacks. So we value these running backs differently than we do other positions because you're hoping that they're going to hit and be successful and be superstars when the majority of the time they're not. They're still good players, but they're not superstar players, whereas the receivers have much more likelihood to be superstar players because we see it.
So I just want to know what running backs, based on the ADP that we're talking about, are going too soon.
Probably most of them, but again, it's just a matter of people need to have them on their team.
What's Josh Jacobs' ADP?
He's 37th, so he's just outside.
Is that too soon? No, I think I'd agree that that's a little too soon. I'm not comfortable taking him at 37, but I might understand it if it's at 47. So that might be an example.
But this again, it comes down. It's always all about roster construction and how you feel comfortable building your team. Like Dave, for example, you feel comfortable having early running back, taking early chances on running backs with the hope that they become top 10 caliber guys. So you'll take Antonio Gibson in round 2. When if you look at it from a point system, he's probably going to finish as a round 3 or 4 player by comparison to wide receivers.
Hope
you get. And quarterbacks. I mean, just pushing those guys down. I'm not disagreeing with the strategy of it. I'm just saying like the way that players finish. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be drafted in the 2nd round. He's probably going to be a round 3 or 4 player. Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs are going to probably end up being like round 6 or 7 players, but they'll finish top 20 at their position, based on how things will go if they're healthy. And they'll be successful for your fantasy team. But this is why people draft differently than probably, Dave does and I do, is they'll take those wide receivers early and just hope that there's a running back injury or you get lucky on the waiver wire. And, zero RB works for a lot of people. I was just in a draft where some guy took John Daigle of NBC Sports. He started his team. It's the flex league that Jake Seeley started. He started his team from, I think, the 7th spot with 8 straight wide receivers. It's a half PPR league. You could play 5 of them.
Yeah.
His running backs are A.J. Dillon, Tony Pollard, Kenyon Drake, Nyheim Hines, and I might be missing one.
Don't have to do that. I'm sorry. Like, you just don't have to do that. That's the point I'm trying to make.
People draft differently.
So I know.
You could have taken 5 of those guys and started all 5 of them.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, round 3, you can still get maybe A.J. Brown or Terry McLaurin. You can still get a top 10 wide receiver. You don't need to do that. That's the point I'm trying to make. Is running back and wide receiver to me are just so linked. Tight end's a wild card in the first few rounds. If one of the ones you love fall to them, we never take quarterbacks super early, except Mahomes maybe in round 3. But running backs and wide receivers, when you're talking about how you start your team, they're just so linked. And what you see in round 3 is that the wide receivers are incredible. So I think that should shape your strategy in rounds 1 and 2. That's basically what I've been trying to say for the first 10 minutes. Do you guys agree with that? That the wide receivers available in round 3 should...
And 4.
Yeah, now that's the next thing I want to talk to you about, because the wide receivers in round 4, to me, they don't feel as good. I don't want to make this the wide receiver preview. I want to know how you feel about this. They don't feel as good this year as they did last year because everybody's in a damn crowded receiving core, and that's so annoying. You got the Bucs guys, you got the Cowboys guys, you got the Rams guys. That hasn't changed, I guess. Their situation's gotten better.
Seahawks guys haven't changed.
No, but Metcalf doesn't get there,
But Lockett's around 4 guy.
Lockett might be around 5 guy. He's
Julio Jones is now around 4 guy.
Yeah, but his situation is obviously much worse than it was last year, at least I think.
Agreed. But again, you're still talking about a second player in a receiving core.
It's true. DJ Moore, he's got the Darnold thing. I don't know. Well, anyway, do you think, because last year we were like, yeah, round 3, 4 wide receivers, they're awesome. So take running backs in the first 2 rounds if you want to do that. Do you feel that way this year, that it's like a great start would be running back, receiver?
Yep, I do for sure.
And it's where you draft too. So like in that flex draft, I was picking 10th, and I started with Aaron Jones. I took Jonathan Taylor in round 2, and then Keenan Allen was there in round 3, and I took Cooper Kupp in round 4. So I love that start.
Nice, yeah.
Right, and the other thing is last year, looking at half PPR ADP on Fantasy Football Calculator, I hated the round 4 running backs. Right? I mean, Melvin Gordon, Mark Ingram, and Devin Singletary were the first 3 running backs off the board.
Singletary round 4.
Round 3. Yeah, now this was probably early August.
Right.
Well, no, actually, I looked at this not that long ago. Anyway, round 3 was Fournette, and that was before he ended up on the Bucs, right?
Yeah.
David Johnson, Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, Jonathan Taylor. So the other thing, like, kind of remember I was saying, like, the dead zone, it feels a little different this year because you have, basically my point, the running backs this year in rounds 3 and 4 feel a little bit better than they did last year, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's that whole group of rookies from a year ago, the sophomores.
Some of them, yeah. Swift and Dobbins. Edwards-Helaire is still in the second round. Gibson's in the second round.
But they populated the position. It was such a robust class that it, and imagine we still had Cam Akers.
Yeah.
So I guess you just swap in Darrell Henderson, who's probably going to end up with a 4th round ADP. But it's populated the position to a point where you supplemented this year with Harris and Etienne on the front end and back end of it. So it does make it better where you're not relying on those older players to have to, carry your fantasy team. Thankfully people aren't drafting David Johnson in that range, Melvin Gordon in that range. That players would certainly fall into that category, but they're, in some different situations.
Right. So basically we've replaced like Mark Ingram and like the David Johnsons of the world and Devin Singletary with
Rookies
with
and
Travis
second-year
Etienne
guys.
and Josh Jacobs, and maybe even Myles Gaskin and Mike Davis, who might make their way into round 5. So with that said, does that make it, like, what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of how you should draft running back if it seems like the first 5 rounds are deeper this year than they were last year?
I think you have to look at a running back rank list, cull it to make it your own. So there might be a couple of names on my list or Jamie's list or Heath's list or Chris Towers' list that you might disagree with. Maybe you think Josh Jacobs is legit. Maybe you think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to stink. But you make your list and then you make a big red line, and that's your dividing line. The more running backs you have above that dividing line, the more running backs that you're comfortable having, the longer you can wait to fill that position. And it might be in terms of like half of a round or 1 full round. But if you only like 12 running backs, you should probably strongly consider taking 2 with your first 2 picks, because once those 12 are gone, if you look at the Mike Davises and Darrell Hendersons of the world and it makes you go blah, then you're in trouble. You need to fill that position a lot sooner. But you might see value in Davis and Henderson, and we'll talk about all these guys, ETN, maybe even the Cardinals guys or James Robinson, and then you can wait a little bit longer. But it all comes down to just how risk averse you are and how willing you're going to make, how deep your list will be at running back.
Uh-huh. All right, so I just sent you guys Fantasy Pros ADP and PPR as of tonight, August 9th. I want you guys to make your first 5 picks based on ADP, within a few spots of what ADP is. Jamie, I'm going to give you the 5th pick, and I want you to make your first 5 picks. You can start however you want, but how could you see a draft shaking out in a way that you'd be happy?
I don't see any scenario where I don't have the luxury of picking Ezekiel Elliott at 5, barring injury. I think those 4 running backs are so locked in. Whatever order, whatever format you're talking about, I don't see somebody taking anyone over McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara, and Henry in PPR, Henry over Kamara in non-PPR.
Okay, so you take Zeke 5, and then what are you looking at in the next 4 rounds?
In the next 4 rounds?
Yeah, let's say, get creative. How many? I want to see how many running back. I want to see your running back.
I'm
approach.
Probably taking 2 because I like Edwards-Helaire in the second round, and so he's typically there in the middle of round 2. So I will take him in the middle of round 2. But if Antonio Gibson is there and Edwards-Hilaire's off the board, I'll take Gibson. If Harris somehow falls, I'll take Najee Harris.
Mixon is there because everybody hates Mixon.
Mixon is in that category as well. He's ahead of those guys. Okay. So I would most likely start running back. Now, if there is a huge run on running backs and you're telling me that maybe Stephon Diggs or Calvin Ridley is there or Hopkins, then I will consider that. If I'm not going to reach for Dobbins in non-PPR would be probably in that range for me. He's a low end number 1 guy, high end number 2 guy. In PPR, it's probably
would you take Waller?
I'm sorry?
Would you take Waller if he was there?
I'm not typically taking I haven't found myself at least taking the tight ends in round 2. It's typically early round 3 where I would take Waller, and I'm not necessarily, rushing to get George Kittle. So I haven't taken a lot of Kittle, but I probably would start running back, and then receiver.
Okay. So you take Zeke, you'll take Joe Mixon, let's just say, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You pick Mixon or Edwards-Helaire?
I would take Mixon.
Okay, you take Zeke, you take Mixon. Round 3 comes along. We're going to pick 30. You're going to go with Terry McLaurin. You're very high on
absolutely
him.
Love that.
Let's see.
Are we playing this league out? Because I'm having fun.
Yeah. Next round, you can choose between Amari Cooper or Myles Gaskin or Chris Godwin.
Just looking at the ADP, I would probably take Cooper Kupp there.
Okay, you take Cooper Kupp. And then in the next round, you're going to go with maybe Hawkinson.
I'm just going to pass because I've already won the league with the first.
All right, great. Okay. Yeah, and then maybe you wait a little bit on running back, and then you get to who's your what are you going to do with your third? Who's going to be your third running back in this scenario? So you've got Zeke and Mixon. You've got who is your third round? McLaurin, Cooper Kupp.
Yep.
A lot of times you take Hawkinson. Maybe you take Kyler Murray or something like that there. What's your third running back ideally going to look like in this type of team?
I'll give you, not pick 5, but pick 10, what I did. So I went with Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Keenan Allen, Cooper Kupp.
Okay.
So similar type of players, aside from obviously Zeke, but you could make the case for Zeke and Aaron Jones being similar. So what I did was in round 5, Kareem Hunt was there. And I took Kareem Hunt.
Okay. And I'm guessing Mike Davis and Myles Gaskin.
I took Kareem Hunt in round 5.
I'm guessing Mike Davis and Myles Gaskin were gone.
Oh, no. It was round 6. In round 5, I took Kyler Murray. I apologize.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, I told you to take Kyler.
I like that a lot better.
Yeah.
As do I, yes.
All right. But wait, sorry. I just want to follow up with that. Mike Davis, Myles Gaskin, and Darrell Henderson were all gone?
They were all gone, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Dave. So now you're going to have the 9th pick. All right. Make me a roster. Tell me your running back strategy with the 9th pick in a 12-team league, PPR.
I'm going to assume that the big 4 are off the board. I'm going to assume that Zeke and Aaron Jones are off the board. Will Austin Eckler be there?
Eckler, according to average draft position, will definitely be there.
That's who I'm targeting. That's who I'm looking for in a full PPR league at 9th overall.
All right. Now let's put it to the test here because, like I said, your next pick is going to be someone in the Najee Harris, Mixon, Gibson range, or Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, who, like I've been saying, they are probably most likely scenario is that they crush the running back you take. What are you going to do?
But I know that the running backs that are going to be left for me in round 3 won't be to my liking. That's going to be the start of the group of the Chris Carson, Miles Sanders. I would be okay if it's Carson. I would take Carson there. I would not be happy if it's Miles Sanders that's there. And I don't think David Montgomery is going to last to late round 3 much longer. You can tell me what the ADP says. If you can guarantee me that David Montgomery will be there, if you can guarantee that Montgomery or Carson will be there,
he's not going to be there.
I'm going to go with Diggs. I almost said something else.
Carson will be there.
Carson,
does Montgomery have a chance of being there?
Not really. Yeah.
I think you got to know your league at that point.
That's what I'm asking. Now, this is a league with a bunch of strangers. Obviously, I don't know.
No, he's probably not.
29, but I think we probably all make the argument that Robert Woods is probably going higher than 40. Where's CeeDee Lamb? Oh, CeeDee Lamb's at 34. That's probably, maybe the quarterbacks get pushed up, in certain leagues. So Lamar Jackson going 44.
I'm going to have a hard time passing on the Najee, Mixon, Gibson, Taylor if he's there.
We'll play it out both ways. So go running back. So all right,
I'm taking Najee.
You're going Najee and you're going Eckler and Najee. All right, so I'll go Eckler also, and I'll take Stephon Diggs.
Okay, so now when I'm up in round 3, I'm wide open. I know I could take any position, but the pressure's off, okay? Weight is off my shoulders. I can feel good about taking anything I want to, except quarterback. I'm probably not going to take quarterback. It's a little too early to take a quarterback. You tell me who's left. I'll tell you who I'm taking, but I won't fear any position.
Okay, 34th overall, you've got Allen Robinson, CeeDee Lamb.
You can't get Allen Robinson. That's 33.
All right.
Yeah, don't give me Robinson.
CeeDee Lamb, Miles Sanders, Carson, Josh Jacobs. I think he does have the 33rd pick though. Yeah, he has the 33rd pick. Sorry.
Oh.
All right, so you're looking at Allen Robinson, CeeDee Lamb.
But again, I don't think Robinson's there in most situations either.
Yeah, depends. Josh Allen's off the board. Okay, all right. You know what? Forget it. No Allen Robinson. CeeDee Lamb, Miles Sanders, Chris Carson, Josh Jacobs, Evans, Woods, Julio, Cooper, Godwin. You know the group.
I'm
Gaskin.
probably, I might be tempted to take Julio. I would be a lot easier to say that if he were healthy and practicing right now in Tennessee. Lamb would probably be next up for me, and then Chris Carson would be.
All right, we'll take two of those
but
three.
If I had taken Diggs, then this would obviously be Carson.
No, you didn't take Diggs. Jamie did. So
I know, right?
I'm going to play it out.
I'm telling you who Jamie's taking.
All right, great. Jamie,
and I don't blame him for it.
Give me 2 picks. So you've got Eckler, Najee Harris, and then
CeeDee
what?
Lamb.
CeeDee Lamb.
Maybe I get Lamb and Julio.
Great. You just got Lamb and Julio.
I'm loving it.
All right. Jamie, what about you?
I probably would lean Carson, knowing that if I take Carson there, I still have the opportunity just based on the players that we're looking at here of Robert Woods, Julio Jones, Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin. So that makes it a lot easier to say I'll hopefully get one of those guys. But if you tell me that Chris Carson's gone, then I'm just going to lean into taking receivers and just, take my chances with Eckler and 3 receivers to start my team.
Yeah.
Just for full disclosure, who's the next best running back that's there after Carson?
Myles Gaskin would be the one for me.
And you wouldn't take him in this spot or in round 4?
I wouldn't take Gaskin ahead of those receivers, no.
Right.
Okay.
I don't see.
That's
this
fine.
is, I think, where people fall into this trap, and this is where the dead zone becomes a problem. Is you say, okay, I've taken my 1 running back, I've taken 2 wide receivers now. Oh my gosh, I have to get a second running back. And like the same thing that happened to Adam on our last live draft. Where you started with your McCaffrey, Hopkins, Mahomes, and you were saying, and again, that was non-PPR, but you were saying, I have to get a second running back. Whereas if you had just maybe leaned into not taking the second running back and getting stud receivers or the tight end there, then your team looks a little bit different.
Maybe, but it's a non-PPR league. I think you got to be a little
sure,
psycho.
and I get that, but I think you took Javonte Williams over some pretty good receivers. I think that's where and it's a natural feeling. People. You said this, Adam. You come back from you take a step back from your draft and you say, ugh, that second running back looks awful. But then when you go, I have the number 1 quarterback, or I have the best 3 receivers in the league, or I have the best tight end in the league and the best secondary situation, whatever it may be, quarterback, number 1 running back, whatever. That I think is just a better situation overall than reaching for somebody just because you feel you have to fill that spot.
All right, let me focus it back here to the decisions that you might have to make on draft day. So if you have kind of a late pick and you go running back, wide receiver like Jamie did, and then you say, all right, you know what? I'm actually going to take 2 more wide receivers. I don't love any of the running backs here. So now you've got your first-round running back. It's Austin Eckler. You got Stephon Diggs. You got CeeDee Lamb. And you got Julio Jones. And you just love your team. And I mean, are we talking this? You'd only do this in a 3-receiver league? Would you even do this in a 2-receiver plus flex?
I would do it in either one.
Receiver league plus flex. Absolutely.
All right. So then with your 5th-round pick, the wide receivers you could have Jamar Chase, Brandon Ayuk, Kenny Golladay. The running backs you could have James Robinson, not Darrell Henderson. That's
Henderson won't make it there.
James Robinson, Chase Edmonds, Javonte Williams. So which group is stronger there with a late pick, your 5th and 6th picks? Is that James Robinson, Chase Edmonds, Javonte Williams, or Jamar Chase, Brandon Ayuk, Kenny Golladay?
It's a pretty crappy group of receivers with what the reports are on Jamar Chase right now and what Kenny Galladay's situation is. I would much rather come away with the 3 receivers and Eckler and then take a chance on I would actually put Michael Carter in this group, and I think he belongs in that group of running backs, and I would actually put Damian Harris in that group as well. So I would probably, at this point, if I had gone 3 receivers and I don't want to go quarterback or tight end, let's say Hawkinson is gone and the top 5 quarterbacks are off the board, I would take a chance on 2 running backs that are probably still in the dead zone if you want to, depending on how far you expand the dead zone. But 2 running backs that I like in this, Kareem Hunt might be in this range as well, depending on how he falls. As opposed to saying I take, Gaskin and then those other receivers.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's another option that Adam didn't give us, and that's tight end. And then there's another option after that, and that's quarterback. what's left at those positions? Is there somebody there that I can take that will fill a starting lineup spot for me where I don't feel like I'm reaching like I would for a Carter, a Hunt, a Damian Harris? I can't take Damian Harris in round 5. And non-PPR, I might be able to take him in round 6, but I think that's just the definition of going after a running back at too soon of a point in a draft. And we might say the same thing about the receivers that we were talking about.
But
this is round 5 and round 6.
At some point, you have to take some running backs, you know?
Oh, sure.
Like, you
but
can't
like
just keep punting.
The whole point of the running back dead zone doesn't just start and then flow through the rest of your draft. The dead zone stops at some point. And there are running backs left when the dead zone is over that you go, okay, I recognize that these guys are flawed fantasy starters, but they do have potential. I know what types of things that I want to look for in those types of running backs based on my league scoring system, and they actually turn out to be decent values by the time you draft them. That's when you can say, okay, I will take a chance on A.J. Dillon, who's his upside is obviously tied to Aaron Jones, but even when Aaron Jones is healthy, maybe he plays the 9.1 touches per game that Jamal Williams had last year.
There's so many guys that are not just lottery ticket guys. There's so many guys that are going to play in their backfields that if the starter in front of them gets hurt, they could be monsters. Yes. But they don't need the starter to get hurt to still return value. You'd like to use them as flex options, but you can use them in a pinch at number 2 running back. And, Dave mentioned a couple of them: Jamal Williams, A.J. Dillon, Latavius Murray, Gus Edwards.
I think Connor belongs in this group.
Who? I'm sorry?
I think James Conner belongs in this group.
I think Conner's ahead of this group just because there's a little bit more certainty that he's going to maybe lead the committee. But I would probably throw Kenyon Drake in this category.
Yeah. These are 1B running backs. That's how I would classify them.
But they're going later than the Connors, and probably later than the Gordons and the 49ers situation, whoever you like better, Trey Sermon or Raheem Mostert.
Yeah.
But they're guys that, and I would have said the same thing about Darrell Henderson before Cam Akers' injury. He was also going to be one of these guys. So these are the type of running backs that if you do go modified RB or zero RB, that can still retain some big time value for you, because then if the guy in front of them gets hurt, my God, imagine having the starting running back for the Ravens as a solo act, or the starting running back for the Saints as a solo act. And we're talking about the later guys that you're drafting. So, or Dylan or Tony Pollard. Pollard's probably in a different category because he's not going to play as much as those other guys. But
some of these guys that we're mentioning are probably more handcuffs than
Pollard
1B guys.
Pollard's not going to help.
We can talk about that.
But Edwards, Murray.
I don't think Edwards will. I don't think Edwards will.
I don't think Edwards is. I think Edwards is a handcuff. I think Murray is a handcuff. I think Pollard is a handcuff. Yeah, but they're not going to play that much.
No, they're going to play.
When I look at these 1B running backs, I'm thinking that 8 to 12 touch range. It's not a lot.
It's not a lot, but all you need, and again, you don't want to rely on these guys as starters. That's not the goal of this. The goal of this is to have them in
it's just like you said. It's just like you said. If you're in a pinch, you can use them and you can feel kind of okay.
But if we're talking 3 receiver and a flex, and you've got 3 stud or 4 stud receivers, then this guy is your second running back. If you have one at the top, one of the top 12 running backs or top 15 running backs that you feel really comfortable with, it could be a great situation for you.
Yeah, it can work out. It's just a matter of getting a little lucky.
Okay, well, I'd rather have Mixon. Sorry, I was joking here. Listen, it is draft prepping for charity month here, supporting St. Jude. It is underway. Throughout the month, we'll have various eBay auctions supporting St. Jude, culminating in our draftathon, which is on September 1st. You've heard about our pre-draft calls already, but now we've added a beer with Heath over Zoom. How fun is that? A spot in the 2021 Fantasy Football Today Podcast League and spots in the 2022 Scott Fish Bowl. So basically, we're asking you to bid on these awesome items, and it all supports St. Jude. Go to cbssports.com/eBay to donate and bid. That is cbssports.com/eBay. This, by the way, is part 1 of 2. Part 2, we're basically going to go through everybody and talk about all the players. We're trying to lay out some strategy here in part 1. Let's do sleepers, breakouts, and busts. Okay, Dave, who's your favorite sleeper?
My favorite sleeper running back. I don't know if Carter can qualify anymore. He might be a little too popular at this point, but I love his talent. I think he's surrounded by the grave sites of fantasy bus past in New York. When that offensive line is healthy, it's good. Right now, they're going through some issues, and that kind of sucks. But I think Carter's got a chance to play the most of any running back in New York, and that includes working in passing situations. He's a good receiver out of the backfield, and I bet he runs a lot of routes because he's stunk in pass protection in college, and they're going to have to adjust to that if they're going to put him on the field in a bunch of third downs, third and long for sure. If he plays, he's running a route. That means he gets a chance to get a catch. That means he's got a chance to put up some fantasy points. He's a little strong guy. I think he could end up being good. He's one of my favorite sleeper running backs, and I like him. I love getting him in round 6. Don't want to reach for him in round 5. Round 6 is where I'm comfortable taking him.
Michael Carter. All right. Jamie, who's your favorite sleeper?
Another guy that falls in that category of someone who's going to play and is an injury away from being a star for me, and I take him in almost every draft, is Darrell Williams. I love the Chiefs offense, obviously. Who doesn't? Love what they did with their offensive line. The report last week of him getting 30 to 33% of the first team work already in practice is clearly a good sign that they're going to use him in some capacity. And we saw last year after Edwards-Helaire got hurt and Le'Veon Bell failed, he was their guy in the playoffs. So it's big that they haven't, brought in anybody significant. I know Jerick McKinnon's had a couple plays in training camp lately, but that's more in the passing game. I think Darrell Williams, should something happen to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, could be awesome, but he's a great lottery ticket stash to put on the end of your bench.
Okay, I'm trying to think of if Michael Carter, because I know Jamie already talked about Michael Carter and how you liked him, if he reminds me of anyone. And my theme...
Just turn on a Hurricanes game.
Yeah. Basically, we love the opportunity, but he's on the Jets. So how much can he do, I guess? And has there been a guy where we've been so excited and the offense has been so bad that it just hasn't mattered? I
mean, there's guys like that every year.
Yeah. So why is he not?
Well, it's because he's talented. He's good at making defenders miss. He's versatile. I think that he's not just, a 2-down plug. He's got some pop to his game. And if he can create yardage, even behind a substandard, set of teammates, then I think he'll be okay. And I think he's going to get the opportunity. That's
underrated. It's a quarterback that is a little bit of a wild card because he's made some plays, made some mistakes. I think the concerning in training camp at least was Zach Wilson. The interesting thing is what they're going to do behind him. Because if they just let him go and let him be the guy, then he's got a nice opportunity to be a good flex. I don't think he's a league winner per se. I think a lot has to happen for that to be the case. But Ty Johnson's been getting a lot of run with the first team offense lately, or at least some run with the first team offense. Tevin Coleman's going to get in there and have an opportunity. Is LaMichael Pirine going to get in there and have an opportunity? That's where I think it becomes an issue. Like if this is going to be a committee backfield, then Michael Carter's probably getting overdrafted in the 6th round. And I agree with Dave. I would take him in the 6th round all day. But it's just a matter of how much work he'll get to separate himself. It started to look that way. I hope it continues to be that way. But Michael Carter right now, just looking at the Fantasy Pros ADP, is the 30th running back off the board. To me, that's great value.
Yeah. All right, let's go breakouts. Jamie, who's your favorite breakout?
I'm going to go back to Antonio Gibson. He's somebody that I love. Loved him last year. I like the fact there was a report today that he's playing in their hurry-up offense, taking J.D. McKissick's role. So expanded game, full offseason for a guy converted wide receiver. He's somebody that I think you can see, people being a little skittish of because of McKissick, and I think that's going to work in your favor if you plan to target him. So I think he's a round 2 pick. I think he's got top 15 upside. So better offensive line, better quarterback play than they had a year ago. I think it's going to be a big year for Antonio Gibson.
For the record, he's a running back turned wide receiver turned running back. Yeah. And I they didn't use his receiving skills enough last year. And I think they can improve on that. They didn't give him a lot of run last year. I think he can improve on that. Like there's a big step that can be taken here for a guy that scored double-digit touchdowns and might be able to do it again. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if we were talking about drafting him in round 1 in 2022.
I've struggled with it because people really like Antonio Gibson. I mean, he might creep close to the first round. He's not going to make it into the first round this year, but he did
in that flex draft.
You know what'll happen?
Really?
If people if they don't buy what's going on in Pittsburgh.
The turn. So 12, 13.
Sure.
I don't get it.
If people don't buy Mixon and people don't buy what's going on in Pittsburgh and they're nervous about Saquon and Jonathan Taylor, This is who gets pushed up, and this is a guy who goes in late round 1.
All right, look, I'll just push back because
He shouldn't go in round 1.
Yeah, but he shouldn't go over the first 5 receivers, in my opinion, which would be nobody's taking over Adams and Tyreek, but then it's some order of Diggs, Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, right? I mean, that's usually the top 5.
Sure.
Are you taking Gibson over them? I'm talking people.
I'm taking him over 4 or 5.
Really?
I'm taking him over all 3.
Wow. All right. I drafted him in a league last month only because you guys have so much faith in him. So I trust
right,
you
but that's
guys.
a problem.
I mean, you're looking at.
I took him in the 3rd round. So
You're looking at
it's not a problem.
an offense that has featured their running backs to such a high extent in the passing game with Scott Turner and what he's done.
in the passing game, yeah, but okay, I know what you just said about the 2-minute drill, but McKissick
They don't call it
is
the 2-minute drill. I don't think it's just specifically 2-minute drill.
It's the passing, the up.
They call it their turbo set.
all right, but McKissick is still
they're
there.
hustling.
Is he just fading? Because I think McKissick has to basically fade away for Gibson to live up to a top 15 draft pick.
I think they know that when they put McKissick in the backfield, they're tipping their hand that it's going to be a pass.
So what? There's plenty of teams that do that. The Patriots
Right,
do that
but
with
teams
James
don't
White.
like to do that, especially the teams that want to try and keep defenses off balanced and have an eye on the playoffs and all that jazz.
Plenty of teams have pass catching. Has
Gibson
third
gives
down
them,
backs.
Gibson makes them less predictable.
I mean, he basically walked into their building and scored 11 touchdowns without an offseason.
Yeah, I know, but
Position.
yeah, I get. He only had 4 games last year with more than 14 carries.
Right, 5 if you include the playoffs.
He basically just destroyed the Cowboys last year. He was pretty pedestrian when he wasn't playing the Cowboys. So if you think he's a candidate for touchdown regression, well, I'm just saying that he really needs McKissick to go away or to just basically not be much of a thing at all.
I would be surprised if he's healthy if he doesn't get to 50 catches.
Right, he was averaging like 3.1 targets per game last year. I think if you're drafting him as a top 15 pick, you would be disappointed if he was even at 3.7. You want that number to look like 4 or 5.
Gibson,
and this is a coaching staff that compared him to Christian McCaffrey once upon a time.
All right, Gibson,
and they don't
by the
seem to
way,
be backing down.
Gibson was 2nd in the NFL in broken tackles per carry. So he was the 2nd best. Only Mike
Creating
Davis.
yards.
Only Mike Davis, though, was better at breaking tackles. Okay, Dave, let's go to your breakout. Jamie's was Gibson.
So let's make the case for Jonathan Taylor, because I think that he's somebody that is becoming polarizing because of all the injuries along the offensive line in Indianapolis and, of course, at quarterback too. When he was rolling last year, and this is the last 7 games, this includes the playoff game that he was in last year, he had over 900 total yards and 9 touchdowns. Didn't have a lot of catches, but he had everything else that you want in terms of fantasy production and created a pace that was just, it's almost unrealistic. It's 2,200 total yards and over 20 touchdowns. We know that the offensive line, if the Colts are lucky, they'll be close to full strength to begin the season. But maybe by the time they get to like week 6 or so, that offensive line should be pretty good. And at least that's the hope. And if that's the case, then I know that not having, somebody like Carson Wentz at under center is a bit of an issue, but the offensive line matters more to me. And Taylor's healthy right now. That's a good thing too. I think that this offense will flow quite a bit through him. They'll do the best they can with the offense they've got. And when you need him at midseason at the end of the year, he'll give you his best production yet. And he'll get you through the first few weeks, provided he stays healthy.
All right, what does a breakout look like? Jonathan Taylor has to finish top blank to be a breakout.
5.
All right, so then let me just tell you, in full PPR, and I've said this last week, but for those of you who weren't listening, there have been 4 running backs who have finished top 5 in full PPR on an offense that ranked 20th or worse in scoring in the last 3 seasons. So it's more than 1 a year, 4 in the last 3 seasons in basically a bottom 10 offense or close to it, and in top 5 running back. The problem is all of them had at least 54 catches. They ranged from 54 catches to McCaffrey 116 catches. So Taylor actually, on his 6-game stretch, was on pace for 37 catches. and that was in 16 games. Not that bad, but it's not 50.
But it's not 54.
Yeah, right. So that's just something to keep in mind. If their offense is going to stink, he probably needs to be involved in the passing game.
I can't see him getting there, though. That's the problem.
You think
you can't see him getting to 54 catches?
No. I don't
Not
think
unless Jacob Eason turns into Alex Smith.
Not unless Nyheim Hines goes away.
How about 40?
40 is doable, especially in 17 games. I don't think he's going to come off the field in too many that are non-obvious, third and, big time distance, scenarios. They can leave him on the field in third down. But I think that Taylor is a very good running back. I don't see him as a breakout candidate because I don't see him superseding what he did in his big stretch last year. I don't see him finishing in the top 5. So I just have a hard time putting that designation on him. But I think he's a very good player, and hopefully everything, works out well for his teammates around him because he's going to need those guys.
All right, let's do it. I
think he does have a chance to do it. And the fact that you can draft him in late round 1 or round 2 gives you a little bit of wiggle room in case he doesn't.
Right. And by the way, he could certainly finish like top 8. I'm just saying the top 5 has been a little bit elusive.
But he's being drafted top 8, though. So, that's hard to be.
I don't know.
Is that what the ADP is right now?
He is running back 8 at pick 10 overall.
But where do you go in the flex draft? Because this ADP.
I took him.
At what?
In round 2.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. He might not be.
But he went, just looking at the running backs, like his ADP right now is ahead of Aaron Jones. That's not happening.
That's not true anymore. I can't imagine that's still real.
Right. So I took Jones I took him after Barkley. So it was McCaffrey, Cook, Henry, Kamara, Barkley, Elliott. Then I took Aaron Jones. That's how many running backs?
I don't know. 7, sure.
We'll call it 7.
And then Gibson and Chubb went ahead of him.
All right. In the last 4 days on NFC, he's RB8. So we'll just say that. And
that's where he should finish.
Okay. Let me just point out one other thing, and this is for everybody that doesn't draft Jonathan Taylor. First 5 games of the season for Indianapolis: Seattle, the Rams, the Titans, the Dolphins, the Ravens. It's tough, and their offensive line won't be great. If Taylor gets off to a slow start, which is very possible given the offensive line woes and the quarterback woes, that's the time to strike a deal to get him on your team because the schedule lightens up considerably the rest of the way. There's a couple of tough games. So the Tampa Bay is on the schedule, but I think that your plan A is to get Jonathan Taylor in round 2. Your plan B is to trade for him by week 4 or 5.
Okay, let's do a bust here real quick, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll look at ADP for the first, at least 1, maybe hopefully 2 rounds, and we'll finish it up on tomorrow's episode. All right, Jamie, a bust at running back.
Miles Sanders is an easy one for me. Just the scenario of what this running back group can look like for Philadelphia. When you're talking about giving maybe Boston Scott some first team looks, giving Kenneth Gainwell some passing downs work. Miles Sanders struggling in camp right now, dealing with drops and some fumble issues. Jalen Hurts not having a big season. So Sanders right now is going at the end of round 3. I wouldn't touch him until round 4 at the earliest. He's going as the 18th running back off the board. I don't think he's a top 20 running back this year. So I love him as a player. I think if they gave him an opportunity to be his featured guy, he could be very, very good with the offensive line getting healthy. But it just feels like it's going to be a bad situation for him with all the other guys in that backfield.
Okay. Would you take Darrell Henderson over Miles Sanders?
Absolutely.
Dave, would you?
I'm not there yet.
All right. Who's your bust, Dave?
It's Jacobs. Just because I think his ADP is too high. The one that you sent us on NFC, or not NFC, this is Fantasy Pros ADP, is right at the end of round 3. I'm far more comfortable taking him toward the end of round 4, if not round 5. I feel like the messages are too clear from the actions of the coaching staff this offseason. They bring in Kenyon Drake. They gave him a decent amount of money. They talk about how good of a pass catcher he is. They reshape the offensive line. They bring in some speed. They're going to try and cultivate speed at wide receiver with Ruggs. They did bring in speed with John Brown. I'm worried that there are too many things that could hinder Josh Jacobs from matching what he's done the past couple of seasons, which is 1,300 total yards and a decent amount of touchdowns. And just so inconsistent. We've talked about the splits between win and loss. And just in fantasy, I think he's had like 5 games with 15-plus PPR last year, and everything else was a dud. And I don't want to take a player like that in round 3. I really don't want to take a player like that in round 4. And I really don't want to take a running back whose high-value touches are threatened by the running back that the coaching staff and the front office brought in during the offseason while he's playing behind an offensive line that could be just as bad, if not worse, than last year's unit.
Okay, and would you take Travis Etienne or Josh Jacobs?
PPR Etienne is the answer.
Okay. And I just want to thank Colin, who sent an email that said, I burst out laughing at your Jeremy Spokane team name. You're a genius. Thank you, Colin. We're going to take a break.
I think he was talking to Heath.
Definitely me.
Oh, no, the Jeremy Spokane was you.
Yeah, thank you.
Heath's was better, though.
What was Heath's?
Spoke in like an idiot or something like that.
Like an idiot moron? Yeah.
Yeah, like an idiot moron.
All right, we're going to take a break here. We'll take a look at average draft position for the running backs according to Fantasy Pros, and we'll see how far we get. All right, we'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. Let's talk about Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the best and easiest way to play season-long best ball. Play more fantasy football without spending all that time on waivers and lineups and trades. Just go to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the app. Draft a season-long best ball team, and that's it. No in-season management. And you can take a shot at a $1 million grand prize in their Best Ball Mania tournament. And how about this? You can get a free $25 in bonus cash on Underdog Fantasy if you use the code CBS when you make your first deposit. I love Underdog. It is so easy to use. The mobile app is slick. The website is user-friendly. So do what I've been doing. Go to Underdog Fantasy, join a league, draft a team, and that's it. You're good for the season. Remember, go to UnderdogFantasy.com or the App Store or the Google Play Store, sign up with the code CBS, and get a free $25 in bonus cash. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code CBS.
More questions, more demons, more evil. The series from creators Robert and Michelle King stars Katja Ebers, Mike Coulter, and Asif Manvi. Stream the new season of Evil now on Paramount Plus. Head to ParamountPlus.com/evil to try it for free.
Welcome back. Part 1 of the running back preview. And away we go. This is PPR. I don't exactly know the date range, but you'll see there are some wacky ones here. But Barkley 5th overall. Although, I got to get out of my kind of industry bubble because whenever I tweet about Barkley, a lot of people think that we're too low on him and that he should be the 5th pick in drafts. Seems that way anyway. Okay. McCaffrey.
He's a league winner. And if he's healthy, he's going to be a league winner.
Do you really believe that?
Yes.
He's got the potential to be a league winner. Absolutely.
I mean, there are a lot of things working against him.
Yes, there are. Starting with his own body.
Yeah. All right. Spend some time
again,
on
if
that.
he's healthy.
So McCaffrey and Cook are 1 and 2. Easy calls?
Yes.
In PPR, I think so. Non-PPR, I would take Henry ahead of Cook in non-PPR.
Okay. In full PPR, just in case you're wondering, Cook versus Henry, Derrick Henry rushed for 2,000 yards last year, and Dalvin Cook outscored him by almost, 4 points per game. Definitely, I think it's 3 points per game in full PPR. He also outscored Henry in half PPR per game. Henry's 3, Kamara's 4. They actually have basically the same exact ADP. So who do you guys go with in full PPR at pick 3 and pick 4?
Kamara
first.
And then Henry.
You have to.
Kamara. I mean, I was looking at his touchdown log today. He scores a lot of touchdowns from him, very close to the end zone. 5 yards or closer on, 80% of his touchdowns in his big touchdown seasons, 2018 and 20. And they've been and by the way, he's never had more than 53% of the carries inside the 5-yard line. So it's very obvious that the play calling really favors. They run the ball when they get in deep. But anyway, they've been a top 5 offense every year for Kamara. So I just said there's a path to being a top 5 running back even on a bad offense, and you got to catch the ball, and Kamara will. But this is going to be his worst offense. The Michael Thomas injury, 2 things. Makes the offense worse, but on the plus side, he averaged 7 catches per game without Michael Thomas. He was good at record setting. So I don't know. What I'm saying is I see the opportunity for a lot of catches, but I see the opportunity for a bad offense to slow down Alvin Kamara. I'm a little nervous at 3, guys.
I think a lot of people share that sentiment. It's the potential of a bad Jameis Winston, which we've seen many, many times. A bad Taysom Hill in terms of throwing the ball to him, which we saw last year in a small sample size. I like that, Sean Payton is making jokes about it, but I hope it's something that they're working on in practice. We had Pete Prisco on CBS Sports HQ. He was in New Orleans talking to Sean Payton off the record, watching the offense work. And he thinks Jameis is going to be the starter. And he also thinks that Kamara is going to have the most receptions of his career, which could conceivably happen knowing that Michael Thomas is out and there is no proven second guy. When you're hearing Marcus Callaway as the top guy now because Traquan Smith and Michael Thomas are out, that's a great thing for not just Kamara, but one of my favorite players also, Adam Trautman. It could be a huge year for him. And so if the touchdowns regress a little bit, but he makes up for it maybe with a few more catches and gets to 90 catches, my God, PPR, he could be an absolute superstar and could be the best player. I know Chris Towers has him second on his draft board, so he might be better than Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry.
Okay,
but there are flaws. I mean, there's certainly flaws.
Right. And Henry would be an easy 4 for you guys?
I struggle a little bit in PPR with Zeke just because I think Zeke's going to have a huge bounce back season, but it's hard to overlook what Henry has done and should continue to do. Like I have the 4th pick. Our draft order was just set in a PPR league, and I'm assuming it's going to go those 3 guys. I would like to get Kamara at 4. I would be thrilled with that, but I share a team with my brother-in-law. I'm sure we're going to take Derrick Henry.
He's not your brother-in-law. He's your wife's brother-in-law. That's okay. So, so let's say I'm just nervous about Kamara or Henry, and I want to say, all right, I'm going to take Devontae Adams because he may not score as much as Kamara and Henry if they hit, but he's so much safer in full PPR.
It's hard to say that when you just scored 18 touchdowns.
Right. Well, look, if we thought he was going to outscore them, we'd probably take him, right? But
isn't this where we bring up Kelsey?
Exactly. Kelsey has been around 300 fantasy points in 2 of the last 3 seasons. And that is a spot in full PPR. That is a number that about 3 running backs per year hit. 4 maybe, something like that. Now, the best ones blow that away. But like what I'm saying is, if you feel like Kelsey and Adams are bust proof, is it okay to take them 3rd or 4th?
Yeah, if you feel a certain way about Zeke and Aaron Jones should be in the mix, and you're scared off by Henry's back-to-back years with over 400 touches, and you disagree with the notion that he's not human, then yeah, Kelsey and Adams are the epitome of safe picks in round 1.
You should probably put Mahomes there too.
Well, you could.
I didn't do that because I can't. I know we would never do that, but I would legitimately consider.
I get it
Kelsey.
Because Kelsey has been number 1 in PPR points per game 5 straight years. Adams, I think, has been number 1 or number 2, 1 or 2 of the last 3 years. They're awesome. They're safe. They've got high floors. They shouldn't hurt you like a running back that you draft and then underwhelms or gets hurt would hurt you.
But you wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't do it because I want the running back that I think has the chance to be RB1 by the end of the year.
All right, moving back to ADP, Barkley is 5 and Zeke is 6. We know Jamie likes Zeke 5. Nobody likes Barkley 5 right now. Dave, who do you like 5th?
Not far off, though.
Okay.
He's a little far off for me. I would put Saquon there if he never tore his ACL. How do you explain last year then? The offensive line is better, and that I believe that Saquon Barkley would see a higher target volume from Daniel Jones.
Well, who do you actually have 5th?
I have Zeke 5th.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. So who's 6th then?
Aaron Jones.
Jamie?
Same. But that's, I'm starting to get Barkley right there.
Really? Okay. So, all right then. Let's take a look at ADP, and we'll just go by that instead of your rankings. So, Barkley 5, Zeke 6, Nick Chubb 7 as RB7, not overall. In full PPR. I can't believe that.
No.
Then Taylor.
That's a pick where people are taking the talented, one of the most talented running backs, and they're ignoring how fantasy football scoring works.
Right, because per game, he was number
around 15 or 16. He was good.
No, he was 9th in full PPR.
Right.
I think
No. I'm saying fantasy points per game. He scored somewhere in that 15, 16 PPR point per game range.
9, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I'm talking about the actual points they scored, not 16. Where he finished among
his
running
total
backs.
points. Yeah, but he missed 4 games.
No. He's saying he scored 16 points per game.
Oh, 16 points per game. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and he finished.
Who's on first?
Yeah, right. He was RB9, but it's a little. He barely played the Dallas game, so he would have been about 18 points per game in PPR. But it's such a great year for Chubb, and he was 9th per game in PPR. So in a full PPR league, it's just you shouldn't take him over Eckler. You shouldn't take him over Aaron Jones, right?
Right. It's true.
Okay. So it's Chubb, then it's Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones. Is Taylor at the back of that group now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Taylor or Chubb?
Chubb.
Sam.
Eckler or Aaron Jones?
Jones.
I have Jones a spot ahead of Eckler.
Why not Jones 5th? He has been a top 5 running back 2 years in a row. We are figuring a bump in the passing game production for him with Jamal Williams gone. Why not Aaron Jones 5th?
Because I'm worried about a downgrade in touchdowns for him. It wouldn't make sense for the Packers to have A.J. Dillon on the sideline when they've got 1st and goal from the 3 and they hand off to Aaron Jones.
Now, they did last year, though.
Right, they did because Dillon was a rookie last year. Dillon was 3rd on the depth chart for them. And I think they might want to save Jones for that passing downs role. So he might get an uptick in targets and catches, and that's obviously great, but he could see a slide in touchdowns. And I think Zeke's got a little bit more upside in both catches and touchdowns that puts him ahead of Aaron Jones.
If Dak's shoulder injury lingers close to the season, I'll put Aaron Jones ahead of Zeke.
Yeah, look, one of the things that I struggle with as a host is repeating things that I've been saying for the last 5 months, but I know we've got a lot of new listeners who haven't heard any of it. Ezekiel Elliott has been, I would have to say, a much worse running back the last 2 seasons of his career than he was at the beginning of his career. Aaron Jones, on the other hand, is, by all accounts, he's one of the best running backs in football. I would have to say that he's a better running back than Zeke right now. So
I think you're right. The one thing that you got to hope for is that, renewed interest in his conditioning for Zeke.
Yeah.
Helps this year. Renewed motivation, for coming off a bad season in general. Everybody around him renewed motivation, so not that the Packers guys don't have that and that Aaron Jones doesn't have that, but, Dave's point is very valid about A.J. Dillon getting a bigger role in the run game. And if Aaron Jones doesn't take a significant step forward in the pass game, and he's been very good, and you pointed this out time and time again, Adam, when Devontae Adams has been hurt, when Jamal Williams hasn't been there, the uptick for Aaron Jones has been fantastic. They throw their running backs all the time. Aaron Rodgers has done that many, many times throughout his career. Hopefully that's the case for Aaron Jones. So, it's I think once you get past those first 4 guys, because again, I do think they're going to be locked in. There's going to be some different drafts where they're not. But once you get past Henry and Kamara, if you like Aaron Jones more than Zeke, I think Heath does. I think Heath has Aaron Jones over Zeke, if I'm not mistaken. You can certainly take him. They're neck and neck for me, and I think Barkley is creeping his way back into that conversation too, just because you saw what he was able to do once upon a time, and the hope is that he can get back to that level again. He is 3rd, but he could easily be in that conversation.
I wonder if this is the year that this changes, but I always screw up this stat. Every year that Matt LaFleur has been a head coach or an offensive coordinator, a running back has been 2nd on the team in targets, I'm pretty sure. Maybe 2nd on the team in catches. It's been Gurley, it's been Deion Lewis, and Aaron Jones. And so I think it's 5 seasons. Maybe it's
so
4.
Who would it be this year? Cobb?
No,
Cobb.
I think it's probably Rodgers. I think it's probably Rodgers. I think it's probably Aaron Jones.
I would agree with you, but who's the one that could ruin that? Cobb?
I would say Amari Rodgers. I think. No, I think it would be a dark horse thing where he's just better than we imagined, and Randall Cobb is old and just on the team for fun. And
I think if Cobb gets hurt, then maybe you've got a shot there.
now Cobb's going to start the year, but
remember that this is still a team that you could say Matt LaFleur's calling the plays. Aaron Rodgers is going to decide where the ball goes when he passes.
I just want to bring that up because it's a point in Aaron Jones's favor. All right, I think we could stop there. because now, with Eckler, we'll talk about him tomorrow. After Eckler and Jones, you've got less proven players. You've got Najee Harris and Antonio Gibson and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Joe Mixon is in there as well. He's really interesting. Jonathan Taylor and Nick Chubb in a lot of drafts will fall into this range. So we will talk about that. And I will leave you with this. How great would it be? I mean, this would be great, right? If every time A.J. Dillon scores a rushing touchdown and Aaron Jones fantasy managers are so mad, we play the Dillon, you son of a soundbite, right? That'd be, come on, Dave. Come on. Predator? Come on. Arnold?
I'm familiar with the movie.
Get to the chopper.
You son of a, come on. All right. What's the matter, Dave? CIA got you pushing too many pencils or something like that? We're out of here, everybody. Thanks for listening.
How many more obscure movie lines are you going to...
It's Predator. Come on.
Did you memorize the movie?
I've memorized a lot of Predator. Yeah.
Predator or Terminator 2?
Terminator 2. Easiest thing you've ever asked me.
Predator or Terminator 1?
Predator.
Okay.
I think Terminator 2 and Predator are the two best Arnold movies.
It is pretty remarkable how many Predators they made.
No love for Kindergarten Cop.
Is Kindergarten Cop a top 5 Arnold movie?
No.
It's not better than Twins.
It's better than...
No.
But it's got its fair share of funny quotes too. Well, maybe a couple.
I think Twins probably isn't so good now.
What?
What do you like? If somebody's never seen Twins, they turn it on. It's kind of lame.
No, it's not.
I don't know. What about Junior?
Adam, did you love Last Action Hero?
What about Junior? I didn't mind Last Action Hero. It was.
What are the top 5 Arnold movies?
Okay. Well,
you're gonna say Terminator 2.
Terminator 2 belongs.
Terminator 2
belongs.
Oh, Terminator 2 belongs, but what's one?
I think it's Terminator 2. So the other options would be like
Conan.
Those movies suck, don't they?
But I think a lot of people would probably say Conan. Like I don't necessarily agree, but I think a lot of people say Conan.
I think Commando is definitely up there.
Yeah,
Commando's up there.
True Lies is great.
True Lies is my favorite Arnold movie.
Okay, more than Terminator 2, huh?
Yeah, because he gets to be funny in it.
True Lies is really awesome. All right, I'm gonna hold on. We're just gonna have fun here. I'm gonna IMDb Arnold.
True Lies is 1. I'll give
Total
you Terminator
Recall
2.
belongs up there.
Oh yeah.
Predator's 3.
Running Man needs to be in there.
Running Man's really good. Total Recall. Total Recall. Fantastic.
Yeah, I said that.
I think Terminator 1 should be in there too. No, I'll tell you what. He's not really in it. It's not really an Arnold movie.
No, he's in it.
Right.
It's not really an Arnold movie.
It's the most iconic line ever.
I'll be back.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not really an Arnold movie. It's kind of a Linda Hamilton movie. All right, so you got Commando, you got Predator, you got Running Man. I don't know what Red Heat is. Twins.
Total Recall.
Kindergarten Cop is really good. It really is.
I just don't think it's top 5.
Right,
when you think about Arnold, you think about action.
I'm going to go True Lies 1.
Uh-huh.
Terminator 2
has to be 1.
Total Recall 3. Running Man 4. And I'm going to go Twins 5.
Okay, I'm going to go Terminator 2, 1. Predator is number 2. Total Recall 3. I love Commando. I think Running Man is fun but kind of silly. So I love Commando 4. And
Jim Brown's in Running Man.
I'm gonna go with Kindergarten Cop. Honestly, I think it's really good. I think it's a really good movie. Kindergarten Cop makes my top 5. Ridiculous. This is the running back preview, by the way. Dave, your top 5?
Running Man preview.
Well, we're gonna go with Batman and Robin first because no one played Mr. Freeze like Arnold. True Lies is 1.
It's getting cold in